Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with the old empty mayo jar dressing trick. That's right, has this ever happened to you? You're down to the end of a jar of mayonnaise. You feel like just tossing it out and opening the new one, but then you remember your grandfather's story of how during the Depression, they used to have to eat meatloaf made out of raccoons and sawdust, and that you should never ever waste food. So you go ahead and grab a knife, and you try to get out the rest, and you're scraping, and you're scraping, and you're digging, and you're digging, and it's getting frustrated, and before you know it, your hand slips into the jar, and now you got mayonnaise on your hand, and now what are you going to do? That's right, you got to wash your hand. I mean, you just washed your hands like 2 hours ago. Thanks a lot, mayonnaise jar. And forget about the mess, what about the time? I mean, you scrape, and you scrape, and you scrape, and you scrape, and you scrape. And like 45 minutes later, you got maybe a quarter of a teaspoon. So you figure, you know what, I'll just switch to the spatula. But guess what? The spatula's too big. That's not fitting in there. There's no way. That's just physics. And at this point, you're so frustrated, and despite Grandpa's raccoon loaf story, you're about to give up. But don't. There's a better way. We're simply going to use it to make a dressing. So I invite you to join the Scrap the Scrape campaign and never scrape another mayonnaise jar the rest of your life. And you can do this with anything, but we're going to add a little bit of crushed garlic. I'm going to add a whole bunch of freshly chopped herbs. All right, we're going to need some acid. I'm using a white wine vinegar. You could use anything. And just like in our mason jar method for making salad dressing, you could measure the oil or just add it by eye. So I'm going to go with 2 parts vegetable oil to 1 part vinegar. And then please, you have to season your salad dressings. So I'm going to add a pinch of salt, some freshly ground black pepper, definitely a shake of cayenne, and of course try to get some in the jar and not just on the rim. And then last but not least, I'm going to put a little pinch of herbe de Provence. That's a dried herb blend from the south of France, apparently. And see those little purple buds? That's lavender. Don't worry, a little bit's fine. And once you've added your flavorings, your oil, and your vinegar, we're simply going to put on the lid and give it the old shake-a vigorously for like 2 minutes. And that little bit of mayonnaise left in that jar is going to form a temporary emulsification with the rest of those ingredients. And in just a few minutes, we're going to have a gorgeous, slightly creamy salad dressing. And because we only had a little bit of mayonnaise, the texture is really light here. This is really nothing more than a vinaigrette. If you wanted it creamier, absolutely add a couple more tablespoons of mayonnaise or some sour cream or buttermilk or whatever. This technique is going to work with any salad dressing. The recipe is really not the point here. The not scraping the jar is the point. And at that point, there was nothing left for me to do but enjoy this on a lovely avocado salad. That was really good. So like I said, I invite you to join the Scrap the Scrape campaign, and with your help, we can end empty mayonnaise jar scraping in our lifetimes. All right, so I hope you'll support this worthy cause. Head over to foodwishes.com for all the ingredient amounts and more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.